All right, we're only 5 minutes late. This is a new record. We're going to be in Genesis 9 this morning. So if you want to grab a Bible and turn there. If you don't have a copy of the text, we have extra copies of Genesis in the back. If you need a copy, just let us know, raise your hand or wave or something. So what I want to do is, I think Jesse said you guys got through verse 11, so we'll do a quick couple minutes just to kind of catch up to where we are and set the stage for the rest of chapter 9. Let's get the really high level big picture. What is Genesis? What's the setting of this piece of literature? Let's put it in its time. Anybody remember what we've talked about with that?
That it's very poetic in nature, and it might not be a chronological, historical account.
Okay, so it kind of jumps back and forth. Like Genesis 1 is all creation, then Genesis 2 is kind of narrows the focus and retells a part of that. Genesis 3 tells a little bit more. So not necessarily in ancient literature, chronological order was not the most important aspect of literature. It was the themes and the principles and the ideas, right? So who do we think kind of compiled Genesis? What is the tradition for that? Moses, right? And so if Moses is the compiler and kind of originator of the stories in Genesis, what does that mean? What time frame was he set in?
Patriarchal.
Right. Okay.
Freedom from slavery and how to live in the land.
Right, yeah. So for like 400 years, Israel, God's people, have been living in Egypt and under Egypt influence, right? And there's lots of folklore and traditions about Egyptian origin stories that the Bible is, or that Genesis is competing against. And this is God's story through Moses of the origination of the world and the way things are. Okay? So that will come into play in our text today some as well. So just keep reminding yourself that this is a competing worldview. This is God's worldview that He's hand delivering to the people, so that they don't just have the Egyptian worldview or the Eastern worldview. They have the Bible's worldview. So in Genesis 9, the first 11 verses, you see that God promises, or you see that life after the flood begins. How is the world different after the flood than before? Okay. And because of that, what is one of the commands given? Be fruitful and multiply. Good. How else is life after the flood different? Or, go ahead.
Verse 3 says, every moving thing that lives shall be food for you.
Okay.
Which is not 3 or 4.
Good. Just as I gave you the green plants, I now give you everything, okay? So humanity is going from being herbivores to omnivores, okay? there's a stipulation to that about not eating the blood. Yeah, Jesse?
That is a theme that is continuing, right? We talked in the last class about the blood of Cain, and this concept that blood carries the life and how important life is. And even David doing God's command was killing or defending themselves. The shedding of that blood kept him from building the temple. So there's still this ultra high value on life itself, even when it's commanded by God to be taken. There is still a value in the life.
Right. So this ethic, this worldview that life has value, all life, not just human life, but all life has value, but especially human life. And so we should act accordingly, right? He will demand an account for every human and every animal, for taking the life of another human being. Whoever sheds human blood by human hands shall their blood be shed. For in the image of God has God made mankind. Okay. And there's this. So, this is a fresh beginning. Okay. And I want to just plant that seed in your head. Look for some of the commonalities in this fresh beginning with a new creation mandate, right? The mandate is renewed. Be fruitful and multiply, and you're going to have dominion. You're in the image of God, right? Animals will now fear humans. Meat is permitted for food. Human life is protected because every person bears God's image, and God begins establishing his covenant with Noah. So, the rest of this chapter asks a really fascinating question. After God cleanses the earth, has the human heart changed? Okay, so let's pick up in verse 12 of chapter 9. Aaron, would you mind to read verses 12 through 17? Or actually, start in verse 8 through 17. Pick up.
Then God said to Noah and to his sons with him, Behold, I establish my covenant with you and your offspring after you, and with every living creature that is with you, the birds, the livestock, and every beast of the earth with you, as many as came out of the ark. It is for every beast of the earth. I establish my covenant with you, that never again shall all flesh be cut off by the waters of the flood, and never again shall there be a flood to destroy the earth. And God said, This is the sign of the covenant that I make between me and you and every living creature that is with you for all future generations. I have set my bow in the cloud, and it shall be a sign of the covenant between me and the earth. When I bring clouds over the earth, and the bow is seen in the clouds, I will remember my covenant that is between me and you and every living creature of all flesh. And the water shall never again become a flood to destroy all flesh. When the bow is in the clouds, I will see it and remember the everlasting covenant between God and every living creature of all flesh that is on the earth. God said to Noah, This is the sign of the covenant that I have established between me and all flesh that is on the earth.
Okay, so let's start out with just some narration, observation. Let's hold off on interpretation just for a little bit and make sure we notice all of the details. So, what is your summary of that section? Visitors are welcome to respond.
He makes a promise that he's not going to send a flood again.
Okay, there's a promise that he's not going to send another flood. Good.
It's a record of his covenant with mankind.
Okay, and that is a record, a marking of the covenant with mankind. Spivey?
So it's the first covenant, if I remember correctly. And it's interesting, he says not just for mankind, but for all living creatures too.
Okay.
Not destroy them again, and be a sign of the ring.
Okay, so not just mankind, but all living creatures. Good.
And the earth.
And the earth. The earth is included in that too, right? No catastrophic floods, right? Good. What else? What do you notice in the text? What stood out to you?
That also includes future generations,
Okay,
and whenever he sees the rainbow, that it will be future generations as well.
good.
Not just this one.
Mm-hmm. So you kind of said something there. Let me go ahead and ask this question. Who's the rainbow for?
That did stand out to me. He says, when I see it, I will remember.
Right. When God sees it, he will remember. So that's interesting. Yeah, Jesse?
I think along with that, I do think it was for me in a sense that rain was probably very scary at that point, right? Like, and if you saw clouds coming, that might be a reminder to man as well that he's not going to do what he had done before.
Right? Yeah, good. Yeah, because we know before it says that it had not rained. God had not made it rain. So this is the first rain. The second rain is going to be panic inducing, right? So yeah, here's a reminder for me and for you, right? But specifically the text points out, God says, I made this for myself. Good. What else stood out to you? What do you feel like is the most important part of this? Like what words are repeated? What's the main point of the passage?
I like that the NAT uses guarantee
Okay.
several times throughout there.
Yep. Here's the sign of the guarantee. Yeah. Good.
One thing that he keeps repeating is covenant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Exactly, and I think that's a really that's probably the focus of this. Tell me about the covenant. Anything stand out to you? Like, what are some details of this covenant? A covenant is supposed to be an agreement, right? What's the agreement?
This covenant seems to be pretty one-sided. There's not much that we are called to do in this covenant.
I would say completely one-sided. What is Noah expected to do here? What are the stipulations for Noah? I don't hear any, right? Be fruitful and multiply, right? But that doesn't seem like a stipulation of the covenant. That sounds like, hey, this is a new beginning, and you need to be fruitful and multiply and have dominion. You're created in my image. By the way, here's my covenant with you, right? So it doesn't even seem like necessarily if Noah doesn't do those things that the covenant will be broken. But maybe you could read it that way.
It's everlasting, so there's some security in knowing that watching God keep his promises.
Good. Yep.
It's almost more like a promise
Yeah.
that God is making than it is, hey, you shall do, because that's what we agreed upon.
Right.
It's more of a promise of what God is saying, I will not do this.
Good.
ever again.
Good. Yep.
And he's good on his promise, as we learn through scripture.
Yep. Good. Yeah, Jesse.
I don't want to go too far down the road, but
No.
when you think of promise and you think of a language and you think of someone saying that they're going to do something, I mean, with humans, it's like 50-50, you know? So it's almost hard to understand the concept of God incapable of lying or going against his word. It's very difficult. And so that concept of covenant, for me, needs to take on this entirely new thing of a thing that will not be broken, a thing that will be kept, a guarantee. Because every time I think of that concept, when it comes to man, it's so, it's not super dependable.
Yep. Good. Yeah. And this is an opportunity to see for God to show his faithfulness, right? He just simply says, I establish my covenant repeatedly. I'm establishing my covenant. This is my covenant. This is my promise, my agreement. The emphasis is really on God's faithfulness here.
If you go to the reverse side of that before,
Mhm.
he also promised to destroy the earth,
Right?
and he held true to that promise too.
That's true. Yeah. Said I am going to wipe all flesh off the earth. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I was just gonna say, I mean, God brought the flood about because he saw the wickedness of man. And the flood eliminated almost all life, but it didn't eliminate wickedness. And so I think that's another reason why this covenant is so important, because, I mean, obviously there might be a larger period of time, but less than a chapter later, wickedness is right back in,
Yeah, it's
all
the
on page. And so it's like, it's an important covenant because, I mean, not saying that God's plan didn't work, but it didn't work. I mean, it didn't eradicate wickedness from the world, so I think that's important
yeah,
for the covenant as well.
for sure. Yeah. That's in the very next section, which means you were jumping ahead, Zeb. But yeah, that's where we're going, right? For sure. Excellent point, Jesse.
Is this flood narrative competing with Egyptian history? He raised an interesting point of like, obviously God was like, let's try something. So, I mean, he had a plan. Was this also part of some sort of Egyptian account? That
Yeah.
was bringing an explanation for, I mean, we've had people like actually surmise that X thousand years ago there was an actual flood. So I didn't know if this was also into that.
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't really know the answer to that specifically. But it does seem like in a lot of faith traditions, the gods are pretty volatile. And they will just make bad stuff happen for their amusement or, for whatever reason, if humans don't hold up their end or don't interact with the gods in a certain way, then the gods can bring punishment, right? And this is an ethic where you have been treating each other. There was only evil, only wickedness on your heart, right? And so it's not like a whim of the gods, but rather a deep-seated, heinous wickedness that is just pervasive, that God sees, and that angers him to the point of wanting to destroy everything. So I do think that part of it would be a little bit in contrast to like, oh, I want it to rain, so I've got to go over here and pray to this God, or I really need some fish, or I'm gonna go pray to this God for that he'll provide fish. If he doesn't provide fish, then he's angry with me because I didn't pray to him or I didn't do this. Where God, this is definitely I think a specific worldview that is being portrayed here.
And you can look at it a couple of different ways, that God is so outraged that he just destroys everything. Or you can also see it, and especially if you know the bigger picture of what is coming, we need to be saved from ourselves. And so why allow all of this evil to continue and just get worse and worse and worse? There needed to be a cleansing. And it's just and right for Noah, who is living a blameless life, that he not have to endure this for on and on and on.
Right, yeah.
So to give him a fighting chance of being able to
Mhm.
raise a family.
I was gonna say, yeah, we mentioned in the last class, was very high potential for man to kill himself. Like to literally eradicate themselves based on that heart condition.
Right.
Even Noah would not have survived.
Right, yeah. Yeah, reminds me of the New Testament. Be careful that you don't devour one another, right? Yeah, that same heart issue can be there. Yeah, Steph?
And this covenant just takes me back to creation, where God just wants flourishing, wants life, wants all kinds of life, wants all kinds of, positive, forward, expansive, life, and his love for that.
Right, yeah, Ryan?
And I would just add to that, like, if somebody were to tell me, hey, I'm gonna promise you flourishing, and the other side of the covenant is just seems like a blank check, right? I mean, there's no responsibility given to him at this point. I mean, if somebody were to tell me about that, I'd say, well, that sounds pretty graceful. And like, a God who just is full of grace, and then allows you to be creative in how you're gonna respond to somebody writing you a blank check.
Right, yeah, yep. And let me use that to pivot. Who is the blank check written to? Those who follow and submit to God? What does the text say? Who is this promise for?
Looks like all living creatures.
Yeah, not even just, first of all, let's think about all mankind. This is not a limited atonement here. This is universal covenant, right? If I were a universalist, I'd go to this passage to say, this is a foreshadowing of Christ covering all creation, right? It's not even just all humanity that is given the promise of mercy and grace. Even all living things, like even animals, are given this promise, right? So that's kind of interesting. Yeah.
So one more thing, so Jesse asked about it. So there is the Epic of Gilgamesh.
Yes.
It's the flood narrative.
Yeah.
At the end of the Epic of Gilgamesh, the goddess takes the rainbow and wears it as a necklace to say, look what I did to the earth. And what God does is he takes a bow as a weapon, right? I mean, that's what the bow is, but it's unstrung. And so every time I see an unstrung bow, I'm going to remember that once destroyed the earth, but I'm not even.
Yeah, that's really good. I was going to bring that up. The every time that word bow is used, almost every time, it is either this bow or a warrior's bow. So it's almost as if God said, I'm hanging up my bow, I'm putting it on the wall, I'm not going to use it anymore. It's pointed toward heaven. It's not pointed toward the earth. Whereas if you use it as a necklace, it's pointed down toward earth and says, hey, this is a reminder that this is the power that I wield. But God hangs it up and points it away from the earth. I don't know. There's nothing in the Bible that reveals that interpretation, but it kind of fits with the context here. If that's the way we're supposed to read this, the warrior's bow is being hung on the wall and not going to be used anymore. And here's the sign that it won't be used. But yeah, thanks for pointing that out. Really good. Dawson, were you going to say something? Okay. So this covenant doesn't just include Noah. You would think, hey, I'm going to make this covenant with Noah, and I'm not going to destroy him or his lineage. It's all mankind. Well, I guess that is Noah and his lineage are the only humans of the earth on the earth now. But every living creature, all flesh, and the earth itself is all lumped into this covenant. For that reason, the covenant with Noah is sometimes called the common grace covenant, because it benefits everyone. Let's see. Anything else that you want to point out before we kind of move on to this last section of chapter 9? Okay, so let's pick up. Landon, would you mind to read verses 18 through 27?
The sons of Noah who came out of the ark were Shem, Ham, and Japheth.
Ham was the father of Canaan. These are the three sons of Noah, and from them came the people who were scattered over the whole earth. Noah, a man of the soil, proceeded to plant a vineyard. When he drank some of its wine, he became drunk and lay uncovered inside his tent. Ham, the father of Canaan, saw his father naked and told his two brothers outside. But Shem and Japheth took a garment and laid it across their shoulders. Then they walked in backward and covered their father's naked body. Their faces were turned the other way so that they would not see their father naked. When Noah awoke from his wine and found out what his youngest son had done to him, he said, "Cursed be Canaan, the lowest of slaves will he be to his brothers." He also said, "Praise be to the Lord, the God of Shem. May Canaan be the slave of Shem. May God extend Japheth's territory. May Japheth live in the tents of Shem. And may Canaan be the slave of Japheth." After the flood, Noah lived 350 years. Noah lived a total of 150 years, and then he died.
Okay. All right. So again, how would you narrate this? How would you summarize this section?
Noah becomes a vineyard owner and makes wine, and he gets drunk, lays down uncovered in his tent, and Ham sees him and tells his brothers. His other two brothers come in backwards and cover him up.
Good. Good. What other details did you notice?
Noah wakes up and he gives his kind of judgment over what has just happened. So he curses Ham and blesses Shem and Japheth for their actions.
Good. Yeah. So Noah provides a blessing and a curse. Okay. Good.
It hit me this time reading it that an immature, impulsive thought. Obviously, we don't know exactly what his thought process was, but
Mm-hmm.
an immature, impulsive thought, "Oh my goodness, do you see what dad did?" And the other brothers are like, "No, but he's our father, we gotta respect him, and we gotta fix the consequences."
Yep. Good. Yeah. So immaturity, foolishness. Again, you see all of that in this action, in this story. Okay, what else? What else stood out to you?
There's a recurring theme with nakedness equaling shame.
Okay.
Like in the garden, when they
Yeah.
recognize that there was shame associated with it. And a dignity on the other side of that needs to be put.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's really important to see the connections to the Garden of Eden. This isn't the Garden of Eden, but it is a vineyard, right? This is a new beginning, and it's nakedness that points out sinfulness, right? And it doesn't ever say that it was sinful here for Noah to get drunk, but that's kind of implied. It doesn't say that Ham was sinful to laugh at his father or poke fun, but it's implied, right? It's also overindulgence, right? So it was a fruit from the tree in the garden. Now it's the fruit of the vine that was abused. And righteous people cover up the nakedness, right? So there are lots of, little hints there of creation and the fall. Yeah, Ryan?
And then if you're thinking about the time period of Moses,
Yep.
they're gonna come into this land of the Canaanites, and so he's like reloading them with their generational guilt, generational sort of their culture.
Yes.
Right?
Yep. Yeah, and I asked at the beginning, the rest of the chapter asks a fascinating question. After God cleanses the earth, has the human heart changed? And I think unequivocally, no. Like you have Noah getting drunk, and now you have Ham being foolish, and a curse setting the stage for what's going to happen next when they do finally come into the land and meet the Canaanites. And you're going to wonder why we have beef with the Canaanites and why I don't like their heart attitudes. Here's why, right? So yeah, great point there. I like your preloading that mentality, like this is what's going to happen. This is who we're going to face. Okay. What else?
I think it's kind of interesting that he directs, like most of the Noah directly curses Canaan, but then blesses the God of Shem. That seems kind of interesting.
Say that again. He curses.
He curses Canaan, but then blesses the God of Shem.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. So help me see that. So he says, "Cursed be Canaan, the lowest of slaves, will he be to his brothers. Praise be to the Lord, the God of Shem. May Canaan be the slave of Shem. May God extend Japheth's territory. May Japheth live in the tents of Shem. And may Canaan be the slave of Japheth." So yeah, he's praising God, who Shem seems to be in line with, right? Like he did the honorable thing, and Japheth, they did the honorable thing. And so he's praising God and praising them. And then I think he does bless them. You know, that verse 27 is really the blessing. May God extend Japheth's territory. So that in that time, that's a huge blessing. That's like, may you have great generational wealth. You know, may God bless you with that, and you be responsible and steward that well. May Japheth live in the tents of Shem, and may Canaan be the slave of Japheth. So, you know, this is the order of humanity now. Like, these people are going to serve you, and that will be a blessing for you to live in the tents of Shem. So that's interesting. Yeah.
And just building on that, that it was an impulsive, foolish decision, that now the two brothers respecting their father have authority over the foolish one, or the foolish one is now subordinate to the two brothers who make better choices.
Yep.
For me, right along with that, I think of the decisions that you make every day. And what we see here from Cain, Noah, Ham, like generational consequences. It's literally setting historical tone throughout time. It's kind of crazy.
Yes.
I like, when you think of the scenario of what happened here, we would look at that as a mistake and move on. And it just makes me think we have departed so far from the consequences of like what our daily decisions mean downstream for our families, for our kids, for everyone that we encounter.
Yeah, really good. That reminds me of Exodus 34. The Lord, compassionate and gracious God, slow to anger, abounding in love and faithfulness, maintaining love to thousands, or for 1,000 generations, forgiving wickedness, rebellion, and sin. Yet he does not leave the guilty unpunished, but he punishes the children and their children for the sin of the parents to the third and fourth generation. And the thing that I see is a father's sin impacts his lineage. Now, it can be reversed, but usually something like that has shock waves to the third and the fourth generation that they have to come back from. Ryan, what you got?
Well, I was just gonna say that beginning of a pile of wire coat hangers, like you can't separate who started the mess. It's set in the context of grace given to the entire world forevermore, and you're like, how's he gonna deal with that? I mean, that ought to put in our stomachs, like, he's gonna allow this to go on and still adhere to his promise?
Yeah, so let me see if I understand what you're saying. So this interaction between Noah and his sons, like he's going to provide grace and blessing, even though that's what's going on in the world.
Yeah, it seems like that is the culmination of the story.
Right, yeah. Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, maybe just kind of to jump to what like I feel like this teaches us that though God graciously preserved the world through his covenant, the flood did not cleanse the human heart, and humanity still needs a greater deliverer than Noah, right? I think that's what you're hinting at. Like, this was an attempt at starting over with someone who seemed to be righteous, but that wasn't good enough. Like, Noah was blameless, but he wasn't perfect, right? And so you see that. Yeah, Jesse.
Yeah, I'm just restating it, but because I really do think it's so profound, and it just hit me like, the moment that the fruit was taken, it's just, you're never coming back. You're never coming back. And so now the good news is, hey, you have the way back, and it's through Jesus. Like, that's the only way to do all the burden of the evil of man's heart from the very beginning. And look at how long God is willing to be patient and put his plan together to undo thousands and thousands of years.
Yep.
And then forever. Yep.
Yep. So let me just point out a few other things. So some of the gospel connections and foreshadowing. Noah is, I think, is painted here as another Adam, right? After the flood, there's this new world. There's a blessing, a charge to be fruitful, to have dominion, a garden-like vineyard. But Noah fails, just like Adam failed. They both fail due to sinful indulgence. Israel is going to fail. David is going to fail. But the Bible keeps raising this hope that every human deliverer falls short, and Jesus will be the one that will succeed where every covenant head has failed, right? There's this covering of shame, right? Adam and Eve become naked. Noah becomes naked. Shem and Japheth cover the shame instead of exposing it. Jesus covers the gospel climax is Christ covering our shame with his righteousness, right? Not pretending that sin doesn't exist, like even amongst sin, but by canceling the debt that sin creates. There's this covenant, the Noah covenant, preserves creation. The new covenant transforms us, right? Just like God hanging his bow in the sky reminds him that he will not destroy the flood again, the cross reminds us that all are saved through Jesus, right? That there's now no condemnation in Jesus. You have this judgment and the mercy. The flood shows God's justice. Like, it is harsh and cruel, seemingly, that God would just judge all these people, but that was the just thing to do, while the rainbow shows his mercy. And again, the cross is where mercy and justice meet. And then, of course, there's the vineyard imagery. Okay, what takeaways do you have? We got 2 or 3 minutes here. Do you have a so what? Yeah.
So I think a big takeaway for me is we see 3 individuals. One sees an issue. One talks about it.
Mm-hmm.
2 choose to do something about it. So is that the beginning of gossip? Of talking about something and spreading this information and not willing to step up to the plate and do something? 2 of them stepped up to the plate
Right.
when they learned of the issue and took care of the issue.
Yeah.
Huge impact for us. How many times do we hear or see something and we share it with somebody else, but we don't go and try to take care of the situation?
Okay, yeah. So, yeah, we didn't really get into exactly what Ham did that could be seen as that, but I think that God would be condemning here, and that Noah would want to curse. But I think that's part of it, is seeing an issue and rather wanting to poke fun at it, or to make light of it, or even go and just spread this gossip and degrade someone for that. Yeah. Whereas the 2 that were blessed were people who wanted to cover
The one who
the shame.
shared the information was cursed.
Yeah. Right. Good. Yeah, Mike.
Something I don't want to lose sight of, we talked about how, the justice was really swift, but we have to really remember, so was the choices and the way of life they were living, and so that's all part of the reason for the justice.
Yes. Yeah. You have to see God's justice in that, and also His mercy. Yeah. Good. Yeah, Zeb.
We've already touched on it, but I just like the foreshadowing of, the flood being an act of cleansing the earth, and Jesus' death is cleansing. And I think those 2 covenants, share a lot of similarities. We talked about how this covenant is pretty much all one-sided, and I would almost argue that the new covenant is also pretty one-sided.
Right.
I mean, God's gift of mercy and grace through Jesus is a gift, and really all He expects of us is to accept Jesus as
Right.
our Savior. And I think that's, I don't know, I just think that's a really cool foreshadowing from the flood and this covenant between God and all of the earth, and that covenant, continues in Jesus.
Yep. First Peter 3. After being made alive, he went and made proclamation to the imprisoned spirits, to those who were disobedient long ago, when God waited patiently in the days of Noah while the ark was being built. In it, only a few people, 8 in all, were saved through water. And this water symbolizes baptism that now saves you also. Not the removal of dirt from the body, but the pledge of a clear conscience toward God. It saves you by the resurrection of Jesus Christ, who has gone into heaven and is at God's right hand with angels, authorities, powers, and submission to Him. So.
I think it's also been said, but to put it maybe a little bit more concisely too, Noah is, sleeping is death. It's a way to show death. We are all dead in our sins, and then Jesus covers them.
Oh, good point. Yeah. Even the imagery of Noah being asleep during this shows his death. Yeah. Right.
But then there's still hanging out that, the final thing is Noah does die. He lives 900 years, but he dies. And so, that started back when Adam and Eve made a bad decision. And you see, all of their descendants, and they died, and they died, and they died. And now we get after the flood, and Noah dies too.
Yep.
So there's still hanging out this great enemy that we've got to.
There's still a dissonant chord that needs to be resolved, and it's gonna stay unresolved until the cross. Yeah. All right. Thanks for the good discussion. We will pick up in chapter 10 on Wednesday.
Sunday.
Oh, next Sunday. That's right. This next Wednesday is the first Wednesday of the month, so we'll do our normal thing for that.